Good afternoon, Mets fans, and welcome to a rainy Tuesday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and it's been a couple of days since my last video. I actually recorded one yesterday, but didn't actually have a chance to upload it. So what I did yesterday was sort of recap the weekend set with the Nats and talk a little bit about the upcoming final week of the season, which we are now in. And so I'll sort of revisit what I talked about yesterday, talk a little bit about my experience in DC on Saturday with the 7-Line Army, and preview the final week of the season as 2018 comes to a close. It is cold, it is rainy, it is autumn, and it's not baseball weather right now, that's for sure. So sort of bookending the season with two sets of different weather types that aren't appropriate for the game seems fitting, considering that when the season started, and the reason that I was in DC on Saturday was because of a snow out. It is appropriate that the season ends on this cold, dreary week. The Mets took 3 out of 4 games from the Nationals this past weekend. The lone loss, of course, and as you Mets Twitter people are so quick to point out, it's all because the 7-Line Army was at the game on Saturday, the Mets' lone loss of the weekend, where they were able to muster a total of 1 hit during the game. Didn't pitch all that badly. Corey Oswalt pitched on Saturday for the Mets. Probably had his best outing since August, I would say, since the beginning of August. But, you know, at the end of the day, he was a spot starter. He did his job. The Mets bats just couldn't, and it was more frustrating than it might otherwise have been, being that the Mets were facing off against another rookie starter from the Nationals with an ERA over 11 at the start of the game. But very small sample size, because by the time that the guy got finished pitching, his ERA was down to like 6 something. So Jacob deGrom, he is not. Leaving it at that. Speaking of Jacob deGrom, the Mets did give deGrom a boost in his quest for the Cy Young, which I think at this point, barring a full-blown meltdown tomorrow night for Jake, I think he's got it locked up in the National League. The Mets did beat. They didn't beat Scherzer. They didn't actually hand him a curly L, but they took the fight to Scherzer on Thursday night. He was actually outpitched, was Scherzer, by Jason Vargas. So that's not exactly a feather in the cap for Max, who remains an excellent pitcher. I don't like him, but I can still call him like I see him. I think he's an asshole. I think he has roid rage, but he's still an outstanding pitcher. You don't win back-to-back Cy Young awards like he has by not being a really great pitcher, and he is. But he's facing off against the best pitcher in all of baseball with a record of 9-9, and that's Jacob deGrom. If deGrom does not win the Cy Young, it will be a full-blown travesty. I can't see a scenario where deGrom loses the Cy Young, because for all of the different numbers that people are throwing out as to why Scherzer should win, there's one that anyone can see. As Scherzer and Nola both seem to fade a little bit down the stretch, deGrom is either as good or better than he was all season. And that, to me, is the sign that he isn't wavering at all. Nothing phases him. He is full on the best pitcher in baseball, and he should win the Cy Young Award. So that little excursion aside, wanted to talk about Jake and the Cy Young. He does pitch tomorrow night. Noah Syndergaard is expected to pitch tonight if the game is able to be played. But the weather does not look good, so it's looking like we might end up with a doubleheader tomorrow. And I am hopeful that doesn't screw around with deGrom at all. I hope that Jake is able to pitch as scheduled. I hope this weather doesn't mess with him and mess up his last start of the year. But, you know, you got to roll with it. That's what Jake does. He does it better than just about anybody. I do want to go back a little bit and talk about the weekend. So I mentioned that I was in D.C. for Saturday's game, the lone loss to the Nationals. Look, I've never made any bones about the fact that I absolutely despise the Washington Nationals. I don't like the team. I don't like the franchise. I don't like anything about them. And being at Nationals Park on Saturday, amidst Nationals fans, and I use that word really lightly, I made a comment on Twitter that the stadium may as well have been filled with cardboard cutouts, because when you turned off the pumped-in noise, external noise from the stadium's PA system, and you know, those sorts of things that are encouraging you to cheer. There's 2 strikes, there's 2 outs. Cheer, get behind your team. It was like as soon as that loudness stopped, you could hear a pin drop. It was the least enthusiastic fan base I've ever seen, and it reinforces my distaste for the team and for the franchise. I just don't like the Nationals. I don't think there are really Nationals fans. I just can't get behind them at all. And the fact that they've missed out on their window and that Bryce Harper might be leaving town at the end of the year, it brings a smile to my face. It really does. I want nothing but failure for the Nationals, and I want them to be back in the basement in the National League East where they belong. Speaking of teams in the National League East that I hate, the Atlanta Braves, I have to send a kudos their way. They did clinch the division, so they are the 2018 National League Eastern Division champions. They will be at Citi Field for a 3-game set starting tonight. Again, I mentioned already, weather permitting. You know, the Braves are ahead of schedule. The Phillies have played well most of the season. They too are ahead of schedule. But I looked at the head-to-head matchups with the National League East teams and the Mets. And against only the Braves do the Mets have a sub-500 record. The Braves played really, really, really good baseball against the Mets. I think, if I remember correctly, their record is 4-12. The Mets' record is 4 wins to 12 losses against the Braves thus far. I think that's what it was, if I remember correctly. But it was a really significant difference. The Mets took the season series from the Nationals 10-9. They took the season series from the Phillies. They took the season series from the Marlins. And it sort of reinforces what everybody had been saying early on. Like, this division is up for grabs. And man, if the Mets just played a little bit better against the Braves, if they hadn't faced the Braves during so many times during their slide in May and June, this whole season might be totally different. The National League Eastern Division might look totally different, but it doesn't. It looks the way it looks. It is what it is. The Mets will do their best to play 3 hard games over the next 3 days to sort of even that ledger as closely as they can and get closer to a respectable record against the NL East Division champions. 2 final comments I want to make today about offensive players for the Mets. Jeff McNeil, the kid can just freaking flat out hit. He had the day off on Saturday, came back on Sunday with a 4-hit game, situational hitting. He sprays the ball all over the field, and I don't even know that sprays is the right way to refer to it. I think he hits with authority to all fields, which is great. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm drinking the Kool-Aid or not, but between Ahmed Rosario and Jeff McNeil, I think the Mets have their 1-2 punch in the lineup for 2019, and for what might well be the next couple of years, locked up for very little money. And that's, as we all know as Mets fans, that's huge to have to be able to invest so little in 2 very important pieces in your lineup, the numbers 1 and 2 hitters. Rosario's really come into his own in the second half. He's had a real good second half, but McNeil just otherworldly. I'm loving the way this kid approaches at bats and has a nice level swing, doesn't try to hit the ball out of the park. It's just really a delight to see. Behind those two is the second player I want to talk about. It's Michael Conforto. Conforto is absolutely red hot, smoking red hot in the month of September. Leads the majors in RBIs in the month. I think he's up there with home runs as well. Michael's just had an absolutely terrific September, and I hope it's something that he can conclude the season on a high note with and head into 2019 with. And I think it also answers some questions, not unlike Jay Bruce. Really, I was thinking a little bit about this. You know, you looked at the performances from Conforto and Bruce in the first half, and they were both different than what we expected. I mean, clearly, Jay Bruce never had a season like the one he's had right now. And if you look at the way that Bruce has performed since he's come off the disabled list, he's performing like the player the Mets signed to that 3-year contract, which to me says, quite frankly, he was injured in the first half. It's clear as day he was hurt. He was playing hurt. It was impacting his ability to play the game. He seems healthy now. He's playing better. Novel concept. Conforto, same thing. I think it's quite clear that he came back from his surgery too soon. It did impact his first half, but he seems to really be, as I said, in a great groove right now. It's just unfortunate the season has to end because he is just on fire, and I'd love to see what he could do if he was able to keep playing right now. So, again, looking at positive signs, yes, I'm probably drinking the Kool-Aid like I do every year. Wait till next year. But next year's looking pretty damn good, I gotta say. It'll be interesting to see what the Mets do free agent-wise. I'm going to talk more about that after the season. I've already sprinkled in a lot of it over the last few weeks, but I want to elaborate on that some more after the season concludes. As for the rest of this week, I am traveling tomorrow. I'll be out of town through Saturday, so I do not know if I'll be able to record any videos between now and probably Saturday. And of course, as we know, Saturday is David Wright Day. Today, he was activated from the disabled list. We'll see if he pinch hits at all this week. I suspect he won't, but we'll see. So anyway, I'll try to record something. I can't make any promises that I will, but if there's something worth recording and talking about, I'll make an effort to do that. So until whenever that time might be when I come back, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter if you're not already doing so at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets.